start first with seasonality, which is pretty simple to look at. Most of you probably know what your season is in your market at this point. But it's great to understand how seasonality changes across different types of inventory or markets that you are located within. And then, especially if you're looking to expand in a market where you have very little properties, there's a couple ways you can see how other um, competitors are doing in terms of seasonality within those markets. So to get us started, we are currently on the pacing detail report, which is located under company. We are looking at occupancy within this company's data by month. So you can really kind of get an idea here just by looking at occupancy for 2021, which is the solid line, kind of where the heavier seasons are in terms of occupancy. Most reports and key data are showing you a compare range that shows where you are as of this day last year. So we're looking at occupancy pace. To look at seasonality trend, though, we really want to focus on what did previous years do overall compared to where I am this year. So if you want to go to the date picker for us, and in the date picker, we're going to adjust the compare range here. We're going to leave -1 year, but we're going to remove the as of date. And then we're going to add an additional compare range as well and select -2 years. So we'll be comparing this year to 2020 and to 2019. And I think that's a really important thing to note because some markets besides March and April had a really successful summer and fall. So I think it's important to keep 2020 in mind in that aspect. But I also think too, adding that 2019 gives you a little bit of a perspective on a regular year and what that booking pace looked like in terms of your occupancy. So here you can see if you get lost on a screen and key data, you always have the key at the top that tells you exactly what you're looking at. The solid line is 2021 as of today. The larger dotted line is where we ended 2020 in occupancy, and then the smaller dotted line is 2019. So again, this is really giving you a broad overview of seasonality across all of your inventory in all markets that you are located within. What's the most important thing to start with, and a great place to kind of get started if you're not comfortable using reports and key data, is filtering down by market and then maybe starting with an inventory type. So if we want to go to maybe watercolor in the markets, perfect. Let's start there and then we'll select a filter and unit in just a second. So looking at watercolor, if you start breaking it down by area, you're going to see that the seasons might vary a little bit, especially during shoulder seasons. You might notice that watercolor had a really strong October in 2020 and 2019. You can anticipate probably seeing that same thing this year. However, if you were to change your market to look at Destin or Miramar Beach or somewhere on Panama City Beach, you might notice that, maybe fall isn't as strong. The great example is here is the opposite. Fall is a lot stronger in the Destin market than it was in watercolor. So that allows you to kind of differentiate between the areas you're located within or where your properties are. And then going back to watercolor, if we select 4 bedrooms in our filters and units, perfect. You'll see even more specific information about seasonality in your bedroom inventory type within that particular area. And this is also where custom unit groups really come in handy. Custom unit groups, just as a reminder, allow you to set up properties that are very specific to your inventory type, whether it be like watercolor, for instance, has different areas within watercolor. So there's camp district and park district. You can set up custom unit groups to account for things that you can't already filter by. So this would be very helpful if you have like waterfront homes or Gulf view homes to see what the seasonality looks like on something like that versus properties that are off the beach or, you get the idea. So Um, that's basically it. Here, you're just really wanting to dig in. You can also adjust your dates down if you want to view the data by season or by the next 6 months and view that data by week. If you decide to do next 6 months in your compare range, in additional compare range, you do want to make sure that you change -1 year to -1 year same day of the week. And then same for additional -2 years same day of the week. If you're going to shorten it from a yearly view down to a weekly or daily view, which you can do on the pacing detail report, you want those days of the week to line up. So that's why we changed that to -1 year and -1 year same day of the week. The more you drill down and the more you filter here, the better understanding you're going to have of what your seasons actually look like year over year in that particular inventory type and market. And then comparing those across your other inventory types. I don't think this is something you need to do, you know, every week. I think this is honestly something you do maybe once or twice a year, maybe once a quarter. You can continue to check pace year over year to make sure you're pacing on point with those seasons and where you want to be. But in terms of checking overall a seasonality against previous years, you're really doing that to make sure that you're starting your year off by optimizing your revenue, setting rates where you want them for particular time frames, and taking advantage of, changes in your seasons. Whatever you do here, you also want to replicate and look at on the benchmarking report as well. I won't go into as much detail here because it's basically exactly like pacing detail, but with added market data. So you can see that the orange line is our watercolor market, where the occupancy is so far for 2021. The blue line is our data. And then in the date picker, you can add a compare range here, which we would want to do. You can only add one additional compare range, so you can choose 2020 or 2019. 2020 was a good year in this market, so we can hit apply and see what the seasonality looks like there. Also remove that as of date. So it takes pacing out of the equation, which Gabby did. So here again, whatever you identified on your pacing detail report, you want to see if that's the same thing happening within the market data as well. Does watercolor in the market for 4 bedrooms see a strong fall, or does Destin, are you seeing the same trends in your data that the market is seeing here? And that will also help you kind of solidify your strategy around what the trends are in your market and your seasons.